Let me get this done first. Amazing. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. We're just going to let some people pop in here. And oh my gosh, it's Coffee with Colin. I'm so excited. We have some really fun things to talk about. We have a lot to talk about. I know some of you have been reading some of Colin's updates and perhaps saw him with Jeff and Barrett speaking on some things that have been coming up and coming through. So, you know, there's going to be continuation and integration of some of these conversations. And we're just going to share this into a couple spots. More options. Let a few more people pop in. Okay. There we go. Okay. Okay. Beautiful. And I see people popping in. This is great. Awesome. Hi, everybody. Just let a few more people pop in because we have a lot of really amazing things to cover. So we don't want to miss anything. Okay. I can find this here. Okay. Oh my goodness. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Oh, welcome, Colin. I'm so happy to see you. This just makes my day. I know I say that every time, but it just truly does. It truly makes my day to be here with you and starts my week off to have just be in the present moment. It's a great reminder of what's going on. How are we going to deal with all of this stuff? And it seems like you and I and many of us are really having a deeper understanding of what it's going to take to to move into the next level of this ascension process, of this process of life. We don't have to label it, right? It's just how it is. It's the end of a cycle. And so currently, it seems like you and I both have some really interesting things happening, and that's really about what does this rescue mission look like, and what do we mean? What are we talking about when we say there's a rescue mission? So rescue mission for who, right? Like, who are we rescuing? So let's talk a little bit about this. And thank you so much for sharing. I love seeing you with the with all of those amazing men too. You guys are just like bombs together. I love it. So great.
Yeah, no, it's a good meeting that, and I encourage people to go watch it. And I don't want to repeat all of that today, but I will touch on some of it, some new stuff that's come through since then. But today I wanted to explain the people, don't really understand the depth of involvement of our soul families and why they're there and what they're doing and why they're doing it. So, just a bit about the history of Earth. About 547 million years ago, there's a planet called Tara, Tara, in Andromeda constellation that had two competing groups on it. Now, the beings on Andromeda were part of a project that was managed by a group of beings called the Elohai and Elohim. And these two competing groups, the one group was called the Elanians, and the other group was called the Muans, M-U-apostrophe-A-N-S, Muans. And the Elanians were more male orientated, thought energy, advanced technology, whereas the Muons were more a kind of female energy, more humane and more considerate. And these two competing groups, particularly the Elenians, uh, who are related to the Atlanteans. But just so you know what I'm talking about, the Elenians and the Muons had different agendas. And the Elenians, now this is difficult for people to understand, this technology, but, we use fossil fuels and burn material stuff to create energy, whereas they didn't do that, and because energy is everywhere. So they were able to harness the energy that existed on Tara, and they used the ley lines and grid lines of Tara, built their pyramids and energy generators. They stimulated various Merkaba fields on the planet. And so they had a vibrant, energetic environment. But the Elenians over-generated the power on Tara, and that caused Tara to basically blow up. And it disintegrated into 12 different pieces. And one of the pieces that it disintegrated into is now called planet Earth. The other 11 pieces are part of our solar system. When I say are, some of them no longer exist because they themselves have been blown up using the same technology. So now we have, the 8 planets on our solar system. They don't consider Pluto to be part of the solar system anymore. They consider it to be a dwarf planet, but it was in fact a part of Taurus, so that's 9 planets. And then there was 2 planets, so one called, it's called various names, but Malbec and Tiamat, and that was destroyed by the Anunnaki many years before they actually came to Earth. But before they blew up that planet, they sought refuge on Earth, and the refuge was given to them because at that time the Earth, angelic human beings on the Earth were thriving as a community because the Earth was developed as the jewel of the universe. But I'll get into that a bit later. But having said that, when the Tara blew up, there was concern about what is called the morphogenetic field of Tara. It's basically the morphogenetic field is a field of energy that exists prior to manifestation of anything. And the morphogenetic field has form holding capacity. So that's all form is all manifest material form are based on morphogenetic technology. And it's a field of highly charged particles, positive and negatively charged particles that has form holding capability. And was concerned about the morphogenic field of Tara. So the Elohim decided to launch a rescue mission to try to reestablish the morphogenetic field of Tara. And I won't go into the details of the technology they used, but basically what they did was they moved the 12 planets of Earth through a black hole, our galactic black hole, and they were brought, actually moved into the a cycle around our sun. And the sun agreed to host the 12 planets of the solar system and to evolve the planets over time and re-establish the morphogenetic fields of the various planets, because each planet held a part of the morphogenetic field of Tara. And the Earth's was the central, what is called, we call it the heart chakra, okay, but it has the energy of the heart frequencies of Tara. So Earth was considered to be, central to the whole rescue mission. So that would why it was developed into such a magnificent planet, because the heart of Earth and the sun, so heart is magnetic and sun is electric, they would establish the counterclockwise rotation of the planets around the sun. And this took a long time to establish that. But the Elohim appealed to the various galactic councils for assistance, the Andromeda councils, the Syrian councils, the Palladian councils, a whole host of them, and they agreed to establish, to establish a rescue mission for the morphogenetic fields of Tara. And so this rescue mission is still ongoing. And when it comes to planet Earth, well, because Tiamat Malbak was blown up and its neighboring planet called Nibiru was set off at an angle of 23.5 degrees into space. And that then Nibiru was attracted into the gravitational fields of a sun, a dwarf sun, which is the Earth's bipolar sun, and its name is Nemesis. So every 8,500 years, Tara comes back onto the Earth plane, then revolves around Nemesis. Now, Nemesis and the sun rotate around each other. So as they rotate around each other, every 8,500 years, Nibiru comes back into our solar plane. And it has a much stronger gravitational field in the other planets around it, like Mars. It was next to Mars, between Mercury and Mars and the Earth. So it has a very big impact whenever it returns. Now, also, when it got set off into space, it carried a lot of the asteroid. When Malbak blew up, it blew up and created the asteroid belt. But many of the asteroids were attracted into the gravitational fields of Nibiru. So whenever Nibiru returns, it returns with a whole lot of asteroid debris that can be quite deadly if it collides with planets and moons and so on. So in about 26,000 years ago, 27,000 years ago, it was 25,500 years BC, so it's about 27,000 years ago. And it's difficult to give exact dates because we don't go by the galactic calendars. We go by Earth calendars, which are a little different from the galactic calendars. And so when the Anunnaki took over control of of Earth, they brought in the moon, which is not really a moon. It's a hollowed out. It's hollow and it has. It's basically part of their broadcast system to control the frequencies on the planet. And they established what they call the blank slate technology system. And then they brought in a second moon onto Earth, but it didn't stop in our, and it was by design, it didn't stop in our atmosphere. It would actually crash through the atmosphere, collided with Earth, and caused the Earth to go into the Ice Age. And of course, at that time, as the Bible describes it, as the Tower of Babel, the people were confused and didn't know who they were, couldn't speak languages, they couldn't communicate with each other. So they dispersed all over the earth. But not everyone was affected in that way. There were still some groups that retained their memories, and they went underground and are still living in the Earth's core. People think that the Earth is a solid core, but that's geological nonsense.
Geological nonsense. I love that. Um, this is really
Yeah,
fascinating. This is really fascinating information. Um, for some references, I just want to give people some reference when we talk about the Elohai or the Elohim. This is this would be the Lyrans, right? So the Lyrans then had stepped themselves down, and we can get into another time what that looks like and feels like. But it's basically having a certain vibration and then bringing your vibration down to fit into a different density, and then they began creating, right? And then we get into the Anuhazi. And this is what had happened. When this happened, what Colin's talking about is how our genetics were stolen and actually essentially worn. And by worn, I mean it's like somebody put a costume on. This is how I see the fallen ones, how they stole like they slaughtered our people, and then they stole their DNA, and it's like they wore it like a Halloween costume. And then because we couldn't understand um, who and what we were, so many of us, the ones that didn't go underground, we started learning from the ones who were wearing the costumes. We started learning from the deceivers. So we started learning fake history, fake understanding. Maldek being a counterpart of Tiamat, Tiamat actually being mother, like the essence of mother energies, who was the twin planet of Tara, which is what Colin's talking about. And when these things exploded, when these planets were exploded, they got shoved into our planet, these pieces, right? And we hear random stories about, mother energies or female energies going out and collecting her husband, the wife collecting the husband, so these stories all coincide with some of it laced with truth, some of it laced with lies. So then we fully never understand. But because this is because of what Colin is talking about, setting this stuff up. I just want to give people a little bit, because we all hear these stories, right? But they're all how they all connect together, right? What happens? What happens when the e- energies or the planets, or what, how they move and shift, and what that does to our consciousness, and thus moving into the rescue mission um, and rehabilitation of putting Tara's pieces back together, right? Which is what we're doing. That's and putting our own soul pieces back together. This is just amazing because so many people don't know this information, Colin. They don't know that Maldek was a planet. That Tiamat, people, even in session still are like, Tiamat, what's that? I've never heard of it before. And I'll be like, well, you were there. Let's talk about this. Right? So,
yeah, yeah. I'm going to cover a lot of history very quickly. I just cover the salient points that people should know. And at about 8,500 years BC, there was the ice from the ice age began to melt because the Earth was in the ice age, which lasted a long period of time, about 8,000 years. But then the ice began to melt, and as it melted, it created the melted ice began to encroach on lands. And so many low-lying countries were flooded. And that really was the flood. It wasn't rain falling out of the sky. It was the ice melting that, caused a large portion of the lands. And of course, there was ice on the mountains. There was ice everywhere. And as it began to melt, the rivers were, filled with water. And those waters also created floods in many parts of the world. So that became known as the Great Flood. And soon after that, once the ice has melted and life on Earth and plant life on Earth could be reestablished, by then the Anunnaki had been working to change the human DNA. So they were hunting down humans, finding them, and altering their DNA. And then their final nail in the coffin was when they introduced the Nephilim about 8,000 years before Christ. And the Nephilim were a race of giant beings that were brought by the Anunnaki because they're also fallen ones, the Nephilim. And the Nephilim then bred with earth women, and they wanted to do was create a master race on the planet. And but the Anunnaki knew that the Nephilim were ill adapted to survive for very long on the planet. So they arranged for these Nephilim to come. They came here, they interbred with humans, and then the offspring of those humans survived. But the Nephilim themselves didn't survive. But that was by design by the Anunnaki because they didn't want the Nephilim to survive here. But that bloodline they established because it has a propensity and capacity to be altered in energetic ways.
Right.
They could alter. They are easily influenced to become demon-like.
Yeah.
If I can put it that way.
That's a good way. I like that way. That works.
Yeah, and it's the Rh negative bloodline, but not all Rh negative blood people are negative beings. They just carry the bloodline, but they have the capacity and propensity if they undergo certain rites, rituals,
Right.
and
Yes.
deprivation and beatings and so on. It can split their minds. So, which is what the MK Ultra program was all about, was
Right.
splitting people's
May I
personality.
may I ask a question? I want to ask this question because some people because this is a touchy subject, right? But here's my question about the Rh negative bloodlines. Um, I see it as a higher a probability for MK Ultra to be effective on anyone who has an Rh negative blood type. But would that mean that somebody who has a parent, let's say they don't have Rh negative, but that could be a carrier or a parent, right? Would that be the same for them as well, or is it less likely?
Yeah, it's not. They have, as I said, a propensity and capacity to become negative, but they have to go through the rituals, and the rituals involves drinking human blood.
Mhm.
Okay, and all sorts of other things I won't go into now because they're too terrible to
Yeah.
describe. And people don't really want to know how bad it is, but it's terrible.
It is very terrible. And they try to romanticize the idea of drinking human blood. We see it in our movies, we see it everywhere. They make it all sexy and romantic and cool and mysterious, and it's disgusting.
Yeah,
We hate that.
yeah, and so people aren't, they don't have, they have this propensity and capacity, but unless they go through the rituals, and the rituals often involve, people being deprived of food and water and so on, and they're tortured basically to split their minds in two, and then they lose their capacity for empathy and compassion. Now, these bloodlines they establish 11 different regions on the earth. They're called the 13 blood families here. But there are 11 regions of the earth that these 13 families ruled over. And they, over a long period of time, established a great deal of wealth on the planet for themselves and for their families. And they've held on to that wealth for a long time. But over time, they, through war and conquering each other, they were broken down into basically 5 different family lines that are now really in control of the planet. And these people, operate in secret, and they're anonymous, so we don't know who they are, and they are the wizards behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told this week in a download that the wizards and warlocks are now in the sights of the Guardian Alliance. In other words, now they are going for them.
Right.
And prior to that, we've just been talking about, corporate heads and, government heads and governments, kings and princes and the Pope. But now that they're going for the wizards behind the curtain. And this is going to, shake up a lot of people. But their strategy is basically to deprive the wizards and the warlocks of their underlings. So that's why they're going for the underlings in governments and in the corporate sector, because once these underlings have been captured and brought to justice, then the wizards and warlocks will have to find new people to do their bidding, new foot soldiers to do their bidding. And at that stage, they will be fairly weak. And so over time, that's what's going to happen. And, I really want to emphasize that people must understand that there are off-planetary beings who are working with the Earth Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a large group of them, large numbers of them. They have very advanced technologies, and they want to bring those technologies to Earth, and they will bring them to Earth within the next 24 years. But they've got to deal with the situation on the planet. Now, why are they involved in Earth at the moment? Well, it's because 27,000 years when the Anunnaki took over the Earth was about to undergo an ascension cycle. But that ascension cycle couldn't happen because the Anunnaki took control of all the stargates and Q sites on the planet. Now, a Q site is an activation site that activates the stargate. And there's certain rituals that had to be done, or certain energy rituals that had to be done in order to activate the stargates. So the stargates were taken over and the ascension cycle didn't happen. And our higher dimensional selves respect the sovereignty of other nations and other beings and other tribes and families and so on, soul groups. So they have not really interfered much on planet Earth at all. But when the Americans dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that had an effect of a reverberation, if you like, energetic reverberation around the solar system and the galaxy. And that got the attention of our soul families. And they said, well, if Earth beings have got the technology to split the atom and they have the nuclear codes, as they call them, then they'd better intervene. Otherwise, they know that we will blow up. blow ourselves up
Mhm.
and destroy our planet. So that's why they're directly intervening here. And they also have technologies that they can see into the future. And the future doesn't look very bright for Earth if this rescue mission doesn't succeed,
Yeah.
because we're likely to go into what they call black hole status.
Yeah. Yeah. And which is, I feel like what we're coming out of that, we're coming out of the dark age that we created. You and I were talking a little bit this morning, and I had some downloads as well, that I've been getting about, like what this next uh, divide and conquer strategy looks like. And it's a little bit interesting because, a lot of the star seeds obviously aren't awake yet, and the ones that were waking up, Colin and I were talking about, they got trapped in an ascension matrix that was fabricated, and it's by design, to trap those of us waking up. So, we refuse to see the exopolitical agenda. We refuse to see that there's darkness. And, we talk about only being positive and only focusing on this. And anyone who has this type of blueprint intact, that's supposed to be here to help the ascension and help those who don't have, aren't as far along, I guess, or I don't know how to say that, because there's no value difference given, but the ones that were sent to help are stuck. And so now it's a rescue mission within the rescue mission within the rescue mission, right? We have to now, I've been seeing it as, like, my teams are saying, it's like the awakening of the awakened. We have to, like, I don't know, pour cold water on their face or something, smack them a couple times and say, come on, buddy, like, we got work to do. And you can't go this way. So what I'm seeing and experiencing, and I'd love to hear your take on this, but I'm seeing a lot of hero savior. So people stuck in the false light, it's like, follow me, I'll be your hero, I'll be your savior. And then people going, oh yeah, let's look over here. And this way is, it's like I feel like it's a trap. And I'm like, no, no, gosh, come back, come back. Wake, wake all the way up, get your foot untangled. It's like there's a bunch of us drowning. And so,
Yeah.
so that's the first thing. I think that's the first thing on the list, is like, oh my God, finish waking these people up and get them out of this matrix. And the consciousness of Tara. So the covenant of Palador, like, let's get everybody over to the same thing. Let's now that we have a lot of our brothers and sisters and the consciousness awakening, let's get them on the right team, and with the morphogenetic fields, right, with the organic constructs of Tara, and get this taken care of, so then they can get the wizards behind the curtain. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do caution people not to follow anyone or anything outside of themselves. We are the saviors. Only we can do it.
Yeah.
Because in the fractal nature of the universe, we are a universe. Each person, in a sense, is a fractal of the universe.
Yeah.
And when you take back control of yourself, you are then taking back as a fractal of the universe.
Yeah.
And that creates the wholeness between the universe and oneself. So when you're following other people out there and following their teachings, and there's nothing wrong with the ones who do come along and teach. I teach as well, but I teach people, this sovereign nature of sovereignty and being
Right.
responsible for yourself. Um, but when I know there are people out there who come with hullabaloo stories and hallelujah stories, and they're going to help you save yourself from, the demons. They are the false prophets,
Yeah.
because in reality, in an energetic world, and in reality, we are a fractal of the universe. And when we take back control of ourselves, we take back control of the Earth and the Sun and the galaxy, the solar
Absolutely.
system of the galaxy.
Absolutely. And I
And
did, you were talking about the Tower of Babel, and that's when basically our entire endocrine system was attacked. And I did put a meditation out for those who want to gain back control of that. So that's on my YouTube channel too. For those of you who haven't done it yet, it's very powerful. Working with yourself, right? So
yeah, yeah, and everyone's going to have to go through a very fast learning process.
yeah,
Uh, and I see that people, uh, I've been public since 2014, and the amount of change I've seen on this planet in the terms of consciousness of people, and people, hunger and thirst for knowledge, and they want to know, and they want to know, and they want to grow,
yeah.
and it's just astonishing to me how many people are waking up and wanting to learn.
Hmm.
So I don't see time as only a moment in time. I look back in history and I see how things have changed. And we have changed enormously in the last couple of years. And
Absolutely.
I think since Donald Trump became president of the United States, America has changed enormously. You
Oh
know,
gosh. Yeah.
it doesn't look anything like it did before he
It
became
sure
president.
doesn't. He's there to shake things up. I actually see him, and it doesn't mean I'm right, but I see him as rehabilitating the Luciferian lines, right?
Yeah,
So kind of carrying on that mission, um, which I think is amazing. But yeah, Anna is saying the spiritual ecosystem of the ascension community needs a renovation. I agree, and that's I agree. That's what this
yeah,
is about, right? That's
yeah,
what this is about.
yeah. Yeah, but the ego is one's false identity, and that's what ego is. But when we, as a fractal of the universe, we become a fractal of the universe. But in that fractality, the I am that I am nothing without the we are. It's not just I am, but we are, because together we are more powerful and much stronger and more influential when we stick together. So it's not just about me, it's about the whole planet. It's about everyone on the planet. And when we care for each other in that way, that everything and everyone is important on the planet, and we are here to serve each other. That's our purpose here, to grow our own consciousness and to take responsibility for ourselves, but to serve each other and to serve the universe, and the plants and the animals and the creatures, great and small. We are here as servers to be of service to each other. That is our prime goal. That is our purpose on this planet. So
Yeah.
it's not just about ego and I'm going to ascend and you guys aren't. I'm sorry, people who have that kind of attitude are crazy. As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah.
anyone left behind is also my responsibility. So I just can't take an attitude that I can leave dead soldiers behind.
No,
I ain't.
yeah, no way. We're not leaving our brothers and sisters behind. Can you help, can we talk a little bit about the difference between being a service versus being a savior?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, often the savior will appear to be in service, but the service is only there for reward.
Mhm.
And the reward isn't necessarily money, but the reward is adulation of their followers, the recognition they get, the way they solve groom their egos with infamy or become famous, and and they're not really to serve humanity. They are serving humanity for a price. There's always a price to pay.
Right.
Whereas the real servers are there to serve everybody, and it's gratuitous. There's no price to be paid. That it's a dispensation of grace, and that I am unworthy to be saved, but the universe will save me, and I give not on merit. It's not a meritocracy. We are in a dispensation of grace where we give without expecting anything in return, and that to me is what it's all about. The difference between the saviors, they will appear to serve, but they're serving for a purpose, and the purpose is a price
Yeah.
that they want.
I love that. Thank you for that. I just think that's really important to understand. And Sabine is saying, well, we can't force our brothers and sisters. I agree, Sabine. That's being of service also is recognizing when your outstretched hand is there and not accepted, it's okay, then we leave it be, right?
Yeah,
We can't interfere or step over free will, right? We're not here to override somebody else. We don't, I just had this conversation with a friend. You don't go in and try to fix somebody or willingly give your gifts out or whatever without them saying, can you please help me? Right?
yeah, yeah,
It's of great detriment.
yeah. Yeah, because we're not here to help others. We're
Right.
here to serve them. There's a big difference.
Huge.
When you're helping somebody, you're trying to give to them what they can give to themselves.
Mhm.
But, it's better to let them give to themselves and learn to be a service to themselves first, and then service to others. Because it's important that everyone take personal responsibility for what's happening. It breaks my heart when uh, just thinking about people being inoculated with a poison every day is just like anathema to me. It grieves me deeply that this is happening, but I can't stop those people from doing what they're doing. That's their choice, but it does grieve me, and it should grieve everyone, because it's going to have consequences that are going to be quite severe on the planet. And when people start dying, it's going to have severe consequences.
Yeah, this has been personally heartbreaking for me. It's, uh, first it's like on a humanity level and scale that it's heartbreaking. But then when it comes into your own personal little world, your kids or your family, it like hits a whole nother level of heartbreak. And then realizing that you have to take and understand that you don't make choices for people, right? We don't get to make choices for people. And as heartbreaking and challenging as that is to witness, all we can do is be a compassionate witness. And the planet is going to, in another 1 to 3 years, um, uh, see grave consequences of the actions being taken by our families. So it's going to be very challenging.
Yeah. Another thing that they've told me in the downloads this week was that there are 142 countries now that are in touch with the Earth Alliance and are starting to work together with the Earth Alliance. It's a large worldwide endeavor. Uh, and they also told me that we're going to have a series of disclosures in the near future,
Yeah.
and they will be rapid in succession. And each disclosure is going to cause a lot of shock on the planet. People realize that how much they've been lied to, how they've been deceived, and who's the people that are responsible for this are going to be, hiding, and it's going to cause a lot of problems on this planet because some of the people that are doing these things are high-level government officials and high-level corporate people. And so it could lead to a lot of difficulty, but it's necessary to have all these disclosures in order to wake more indigos and starseeds up, because
Yeah.
many of them are still asleep here.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I want to, there's a couple questions coming in, Colin, and they're really great. Sabine is saying, so if we're on the train to ascend and we know that others won't catch up with it, then do we leave them behind? You know, she's saying, do you just leave them behind?
well, the way I look at it is we are all souls, soul beings. We are a field of energy that is having a physical experience. So when the Earth ascends, it goes into a higher dimensional space in the space-time continuum. Um, and space and time are just the illusion that we create. Um, but the people who decide not to, they don't want to ascend, will just remain on the planet.
Right. And that's okay. And so, in a sense, Sabine, you're not leaving them behind in
No,
the sense that um, the soul ascends, right? And eventually we end up eventually we're all going to do like our own thing, but in this particular reality, I guess it could be looked at as you're leaving them behind, right? But it's detaching ego from the reality of the situation, I think. Would that be fair to say? There's
yeah. And there are different levels of rescue. The one is this current one where people will be rescued by a dimensional blending process,
right.
and
Yeah.
that will be the ascension. But those that are left behind are not necessarily left behind forever,
Yeah.
because the everyone is important, everything is important, every plant and tree and animal is important. And so there'll be ongoing operations after the actual event, and the separation of the old earth from the new earth from the old earth. The old earth will still continue, but that doesn't mean they still can't be rescued, because at this very moment in time, our earth is surrounded by a plethora of different starships and cargo carriers and transport ships that we can't see because they're in another dimension.
Mhm.
But they're ready to appear. They call it a cloak of invisibility. They're able to cloak themselves through frequency technologies to raise the frequency of their spaceships and so on into a frequency that we can't actually see, because we only have a small range of light that we can actually see.
Right. And so we see like in our mind's eye. Mary, thank you for this question, Mary. Mary says, on the inoculation, what if those people realize their mistake and want to heal, or see that they've done, see what they've done, and they change their minds and ask for help? This is actually some of the stuff I'm receiving downloads on and special training for. I think a lot of us are. So what are your thoughts on that, Colin?
I really don't know. It depends which form of the they've had, because
Hmm.
there's not just one formula. There are four major ones at the moment,
Okay.
and the two with RNA vaccines, that are RNA-based vaccines, are going to be very difficult to reverse. Um, but I think what I've been told, okay, and a lot of people are very skeptical about this, but I've been told that it doesn't really matter, because in a very short space of time, we're going to have these disclosures, and after the disclosures, there will be various announcements, and then there'll be technological upgrades on the planet, and part of those technological upgrades will be the med beds. And people, I've seen them not on this planet but on other planets,
Hmm.
and I've seen how they work. And basically, it's holographic technology, because we are living in a hologram. Now, the beings on other dimensions, they know that they are energy beings who have a physical experience, whereas we think we have physical beings who have an energy experience. They know that matter comes from energy, and the hologram we're seeing as matter is actually formed by energy. And it appears solid, but it's not solid. Nothing is solid.
Hmm.
It's just it appears to be solid. And it's our consciousness that creates that solidity. So what they do is they can heal the hologram. Okay. Now our bodies are holograms.
Right.
uh, you know, and the blueprint for that hologram is in our DNA. Okay, and the DNA, the blueprint for our DNA is in our soul bodies. It's called soul codes. The various soul codes we have in our soul bodies that have corresponding DNA in the physical body. So they can work with the cell codes to change the DNA. They can work with various devices, frequency generators, to change the body shape, to fix the organs in the body, because every every element on the elemental table has a certain frequency signature. So if they want to put, for instance, whatever substance, they just ring up that frequency, put it into the body, and that's where you get that particular. So they can repair limbs, they can
Right.
replace limbs, they can replace organs, they can repair organs, they can do all kinds of things just by with frequency technologies. Now, there was a guy called Wright Raymond Royal Rife, who he also was started to work with these frequency generators, and he was discredited and he was closed down. And um, I'm not sure if he actually went to jail, but his whole operation was closed down. He ended up being bankrupt
Hmm.
because and he invented a frequency generator and an amazing microscope, because our electron microscopes actually kill viruses. So they don't see live viruses, they can only see dead viruses, whereas Rife was able to create a microscope where he could actually watch live
Okay.
viruses and pass these frequencies through the virus, and to see how the frequency would pop the virus, would, basically break it up. And but unfortunately, these technologies exist, but they've been hidden from us. A lot of people have asked me over the years, "Oh, if you know all this technology, how to create spaceships and flying saucers, why
Why?
don't you do it?"
Yeah,
So why should I? Because
exactly.
it's already there.
It is.
But if
It's. I think about this, and I think that that really is such a great question. So, thank you for posing this question, Mary, because we can really go into so much of this. When we also understand the hologram and we understand how time works, I think to myself, Colin, well, why can't we go back to the moment? Why can't we go back to the moment and change that moment, right? And make adjustments in the moment, and that would be like holographic kinetics, or dream walking, right? So we have that as an option, as far as I'm concerned. Looking at that as a possibility. But moving forward, I actually have kind of been seeing um, the damage is pretty bad. Like, I don't want to, I'm not going to like skirt around it, right? Like, dream walking sounds great, but is that actually doable in this situation? So I actually have been noticing, for those that would be like, oh my gosh, I'm waking up and now I'm asking for help. I almost see it as they are some level of like, they don't really get reconnected back to their soul. Not that the soul is damaged, it's going to be put on hold for when you drop the body. But I see it as like some type of like integration of like a new human kind of, right? And so the ones that decide, yeah, I want to be a fit part of society, are going to be able to integrate, just on different levels, not um, not soulless, but kind of, right? It's like I don't know how to explain it, because even when calling souls back from clients I've worked with, being able to pull the soul back and to be able to communicate with it, it still can't go into the body. I can't get it to attach in. They can't get it to attach in. There's no, like, it doesn't go in. It's like it just doesn't. And but maybe the med beds and or the some level of holographic kinetics is going to make that change and that different. But I don't know about you, Colin, but I don't, seeing into future timelines is less easy than it used to be, right? I
Yeah.
feel like it's constantly changing and moving, and perhaps on purpose. So,
Yeah, it has to do with the DNA of the person, because as your DNA changes, if it changes into a form that is not designed by the soul, that is where the disconnect happens.
right,
You know,
right.
and like this little medicine that people are inoculating themselves now as an RNA base, they are going to change their genetic form.
Yeah,
And that's going to cause problems between the soul and the body, because they are symbiotic. They have a symbiotic relationship. What happens in the body happens in the soul. What happens in the soul happens in the body. You put something into your body which changes your DNA, that symbiosis goes.
yeah,
So people have to be very careful of that.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Gosh, there's just so much to think about. So, Lyndon, thank you. We're now making history as we go forward from a sort of 0 point, I understood, is what she's saying. Yes. Yeah.
We're not only making history in the earth, we're making history in the universe.
Can you imagine? I mean, they're just up there going, oh my gosh, how are they going to get themselves out of this one?
Yeah, yeah. Look, when I was on other planets, we talked about this, and they knew what they wanted to do, but they didn't know exactly how they were going to do it, because the situation is so fluid. One day it's like this, the next day it changes, because they're dealing with consciousness,
Right.
and consciousness is not static; it's an ever change, like a moving wave. And they understand the waves and how to manipulate and work with the waveforms. So yeah, it's I've been fortunate in that sense, that I've got a real sense of energy and waves, and where matter comes from, and what matters and what doesn't.
Right. Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. Well, moving forward, let's,
Yeah,
what can we leave people with? Like, because this summer, I mean, my gosh, there's going to be a lot of shift and change. There's going to be a lot of, um, it's a little bit of disclosure, but it's going to be pretty massive. So, what can we say to people? What can we do to help them through this next little bit here? We'll just give one, we'll just give 1 second, and if anyone has any questions, please pop them in the feed. We're happy to answer before we get ready to head out of here. Um, uh, just give Colin a second to come back. Beautiful.
sorry, I just had to pay a visit.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, I think I'm doing my best to tell people what to do and how to do it. In the coming months. So stay close, stay in touch, and we'll do this program every Sunday, and we'll walk
Yeah.
everyone through the whole process. And it's just a process.
Yeah.
And And really, don't take it too seriously, because seriousness always creates problems. When you take things too seriously, you have to keep a light heart about things. And the important thing is to have confidence in yourself and your abilities, because let me tell you something, humans are far more powerful than they give themselves credit for.
Mm.
But it's just they've never really discovered the power that they have, their power to think, to feel, to make choices, to raise their standards and values, to develop good attitudes. And because we talked about this in previous shows, that we are creating our own hologram. We are the creators of the hologram. And every day, everything that you see and you are creating. Now that makes you a creator. Now
Mhm.
just think about that we are all creators. We create just like God creates, we create. And we create in our own reality. When people get a realization of that they have a direct influence. It's not a proportional influence, it's a direct influence on what they will experience in their hologram. But if they continue to be brainwashed by the nonsense that they've been told and indoctrinated with, they will keep doing the same things over and over and over and over again. And that's the height of insanity, to do the same thing over and over and over again, expect a different outcome. And so people have to, get real and say, I'm going to take responsibility because I can. I have that power. You know, I can think, I can feel, I can do, I can say, whatever talents you have, use them, you know,
I love
because that,
that. I
yeah,
love that. My little girl, this is just on a really small scale. She's 5, right? And we practice like high sensory perception, right? Spiritual housekeeping, high sensory perception. And she always stands too close to the elevator when we go to her sister's house. I say, back away. What if somebody is going to come out of the elevator? We want to make sure we're out of the way so somebody can exit the elevator first. And she says, Mom, there's nobody in there. And I said, well, you don't know that. And she said, yes, I do. My little tiny angels can see. I said, I know there's nobody in there. And so she says, has these little tiny angels she uses for her high. That's how she perceives it, right?
yeah,
Every single time she's right. It is absolutely hysterical. She will innately just move away. And, I forget how even indoctrinated I am into the system of doing what I'm told to do. We know, okay, get out of the way. We should stand over here or do this. And she's like, no, I'm already seeing it. It's already there. There's no need. I know I can just walk on, and having that kind of faith and trust in your own perceptions and abilities is
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. Develop an independent mind.
I love it. Oh my goodness. What an amazing chat we have had today, Colin. Thank you so much. I just love being here with you. Honored to be here with you. And yes, we're going to be here every Sunday. And where can we find more of your teachings? Because I know you're putting more and more every time into your website. So where can we find you?
Yeah. My website is the writings of colinjoe.com. You can find my books there, my teachings there, my writings there, my courses there. And if people would like to support me, I'm going to start up a new. I've got a Patreon account, but I'm going to create a new system on my Patreon account. In that every month I'll be giving 2 lessons on the mechanics of the bioenergetic mechanics, and I'll also be giving explanations personally on those. I'll do videos explaining the technology personally. So if people want to support me, they can go onto my Patreon page and support me there.
I love it. Can you send me a link for your Patreon page so I can
Yeah,
put
sure,
that
I'll
in
do
our
that.
stuff? Thank you. That would be amazing. All right, you guys. It's so great to be here. Beautiful questions. Thank you. Always bring your questions. We'll do the best we can to answer them. Right? Doesn't mean we're right, but I'm happy to share our knowledge and our perceptions. So, so much love to you, and until next week, I bid you
Yeah,
adieu.
yeah. Love you, Chastity, and to all the um, viewers out there, to all the lovers of life. We're gonna get them.
We are. I'm so excited about it. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now.
Yeah, we've
All right.
got this one.
We do. We do. Like, oh, okay. Before we go, I just have to say this. Like, my guilty pleasure is Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And there was this moment in season 7 when Buffy realizes that she's going to be able to be defeated, or be able to defeat them. And she says, I just realized something. We're going to win. And I just am like, I get so jazzed about that, because like that's how I feel. This is like, having that realization of we got this one. Like
Yeah,
it's in the bag. We just got to do the work. That doesn't mean give up, because right now we're in the moment of realizing that and creating that. So
yeah.
uh,
It's walking into the future we've already established.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right. Love you. I love you. Goodbye,
Love you
everybody.
too. Love you all. Bye bye.